I would like to take this opportunity to introduce you to our/pro Revenge. We are a group of individuals who have been inspired by the actions of a World War II veteran who has taken it upon himself to exact revenge from beyond the grave. I would like to share with you a personal anecdote. I had the opportunity to meet this young lady at a lifeguard certification course. We conversed during the course of the day and I found myself drawn to her. We exchanged contact information and social media details and proceeded to communicate via these channels for several weeks. During this time, I proposed a date to see a movie, which she accepted. Our interactions have been casual and non-committal. We have not been residing at each other's places. Despite my previous indications of interest, one of her friends, with whom I had also been in attendance at the lifeguarding course, sent me this screenshot. It read, "Aren't you and Opie going out now?" My response was not entirely accurate, but as long as he continues to provide financial support, I am willing to accept his offers of companionship. It is important to note that I am not solely motivated by financial gain. I am also driven by the need to nourish my physical being. Moreover, I am curious as to why he has such negative feelings towards me. I inquired as to whether she would accompany me to a hibachi grill restaurant. The establishment offers a selection of premium desserts and entrees priced between $20 and $40. I selected the most expensive item on the menu, which she did as well. We also ordered ice cream and received multiple refills on our beverages. Throughout the meal, I offered her frequent compliments and maintained a cheerful demeanor. After approximately 45 minutes, I received a text message from her expressing her frustration. She informed me that she had to seek her mother's assistance in paying for the meal because she lacked the necessary funds. She informed me that she had spent money on me and that our relationship was over. I was disheartened to learn this, as I had believed she was genuinely interested in me. Nevertheless, I felt a sense of relief at the news. Our next Reddit post dates back to Pika Tiara, which was published several years ago. At that time, my mother and I had recently relocated to a new apartment complex that permitted dogs. We had 2 dogs at the time, a Bichon Shih Tzu and a Terrier Poodle mix. The presence of a community dog park right next to our building was an exciting development. It should be noted that our entire building was populated by dog owners. Each apartment in the building housed a dog of varying sizes. Our apartment was on the first floor, situated towards the back of the building. It was a private area, situated in a corner of the apartment complex. Given that one of our dogs is a terrier, he can be vocal when we are not home. However, when we are home, we utilize a clicker to get his attention. He has been trained to stop barking and come to whoever has the clicker. Due to our work schedules, I was usually home in the morning, while my mother was home in the evening. In the afternoon, he was left alone for several hours. After a month of residing in our new apartment, we received a note on our door from a neighbor. It stated, "Dear neighbor, I understand that you are new to this complex, but it is considered discourteous to allow your dog to bark. It is disrupting my sleep before I go to work, and my job is of the utmost importance. I don't care how you do it, but please quiet your dog." My mother promptly submitted the note to the leasing office, uncertain of how to proceed. At this point, the office informed us that we should not be concerned, as the individual in question had previously engaged in similar behavior with other dogs in the building. However, they did request that we attempt to identify methods for soothing the dog when we were not present. Consequently, we implemented a series of measures to mitigate the situation. Firstly, we discovered that the children in the neighborhood were attracted to the power station located outside our apartment. It became evident that this was the source of the disturbances, as the dog was barking at them. To address this, we restricted access to the area when we were away. Additionally, we played calming music to provide a distraction and help mitigate the dog's agitation. A week later, we encountered a similar issue. However, this time, we hear a knock at the door and go outside to find our neighbor, visibly agitated. He informs us that our dog has been keeping him awake at night with hours of incessant barking. We had been home that day and our dog had been well behaved, so we were taken aback by this accusation. Our neighbor then states that if we cannot control our dog, he will call animal control and have them both removed from our premises. He has previously taken such action and has no qualms about doing so again. Subsequently, I will have you evicted for failing to adhere to the established guidelines. I am in a position to do so due to my considerable financial resources, and the apartment complex requires my contributions to maintain its viability. It is, therefore, incumbent upon you to take action. If you do not silence your dogs, I will have to apologize to my mother for what has occurred. We subsequently returned to the apartment a few moments later. Upon walking out to retrieve the mail, I discovered from another neighbor that the individual had visited 3 other apartments and made similar threats. After some persuasion, my mother informed the apartment management of the incident. We were advised not to worry and to contact them again if the same thing happened. Furthermore, we discovered that the apartment had offered him an alternative residence away from the dogs. However, he declined this offer, citing the dogs as the source of the problem, not him. Following this incident, my mother began to display signs of anxiety. In response, she purchased a citronella spray collar for our dog. While I initially disapproved of this idea, it had a calming effect on her, allowing her to venture outside our apartment. We ensured that the collar was only used on him. A month passed without incident. However, we were once again visited by animal control. This time, they had received an anonymous report of abuse and neglect involving our dogs. The animal control officer informed us that someone had complained that our dogs were barking due to neglect. My mother invited the officer inside and provided a detailed account of the situation. We were able to demonstrate that our dogs were not being neglected and that their barking was not a result of abuse. The animal control officer observed that our dogs were playful and happy, which led her to believe that this was another false call. She informed us that they had received similar reports from an anonymous neighbor in 4 other apartments in the building. She advised us to record any future threats. The experience transformed my mother into a paranoid individual, causing her to become fearful of leaving the house. She believed that if she did so, she would lose custody of her dogs. I am typically the most calm member of my family. I am not easily upset. However, this neighbor had deliberately targeted us in an attempt to cause distress. Consequently, I conducted extensive research and uncovered several legal avenues that could assist us. I also gathered new information about the relevant laws and leasing terms. I devised a plan over the course of a weekend, and my mother was visiting my aunt in another state. I began by printing out a few items and then sat outside with my phone in the speaker, playing a video of a dog barking loudly. I determined which apartment was his by consulting with several neighbors who were also tired of being harassed. I sat there, looking across the courtyard to where his apartment was located. I waited with a smile on my face, hoping for the best. As I had hoped, he stormed out and hit it over to where I was. I turned off my video and turned on my recorder without him noticing. His face was red with anger as he looked at me, sitting there with a smile. "I'm sorry," I said. "Can I help you?" "I haven't told you what I'll do to your family if you don't stop," I said. As a result of his actions, I am now forced to consider the possibility of having my dogs taken from me and being evicted from my residence. I had previously offered him the opportunity to comply with my requests, but he has failed to do so. I hope that when the authorities remove my dogs, he and his mother will be forced to live in a cardboard box. I then feigned shock and said, "So you're saying that I'm not allowed to make loud noises, including my dog's barking, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 11 p.m.? Furthermore, I was informed that I had contravened the law by doing so. It is therefore somewhat incongruous that I am being informed of this at 2 p.m. on my porch. In the afternoon, this will no longer be my porch." I informed him that I would report the incident to the leasing office, which he perceived as a very serious threat. I then proceeded to turn off my recorder on my phone. The neighbors were now confused, and I asked him to clarify his intentions. "Please have a seat. I have a few items to present to you." I retrieve the relevant documentation and present the first item, which is the county's noise ordinance laws. The document states that a dog's bark is considered to be the same volume as a loud appliance, and therefore, dogs are permitted to bark between the hours of 7, the time was 12 a.m. The hours in question were 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. Before he could respond, I produced another document. This one stated that threatening another neighbor was prohibited by the terms of the lease. After a single warning, the apartment complex had the right to terminate the lease. He then looked at me with comprehension, as though he understood the gravity of his actions. I then silenced him and produced the final document, which pertained to another lease term. His expression had changed significantly after reading this one. His complexion assumed a pallid hue. This final document detailed the complete violation of leasing terms that would result from entering another renter's property and issuing threats to them or their belongings. This included the renter's outdoor space. Those who were found guilty of this infraction would have their lease revoked immediately and be compelled to vacate the apartment within a specified time frame. The expression on his face was one of abject terror as I silently rose from my seat and departed. After the individual in question had vacated the premises, I contacted my leasing office to provide an account of the incident and to request that they be sent a recording of the event via email. A week later, my mother returned home with information she had obtained from the leasing office. This information indicated that the individual in question had been evicted from his apartment and would be leaving the premises later that week. I subsequently learned that my actions had prompted other dog owners in the building to come forward with similar experiences. Furthermore, he was compelled to admit what he had been doing to all of them. After that, there was never another complaint. I subsequently discarded the lemon spray collar. My mother still experiences anxiety attacks on occasion, but she has been receiving assistance to mitigate those concerns. As for me, I do not regret my actions. However, I do regret the necessity of such measures. If this individual was so affluent, why was he residing in an apartment complex? What kind of individual moves into a dog? The apartment complex was friendly, and the man became upset when he heard dogs barking. It is reasonable to conclude that he was not expecting such a response. Our next Reddit post is from Benign Reaver. This is not my story, but it is a story about a deceased uncle. Rest in peace, Hodge. Backstory: World War II. My uncle, Hodge, was an engineer with the Royal Air Force. He rapidly climbed the ranks and ended up being the head engineer at a local base. After the war, he met his wife of 45 years, Eve. It was a typical post-war relationship. Despite the absence of offspring, he established a marital relationship with Eve, with whom he had 4 children. Following the war, he secured employment at the local coal mine, where he rapidly advanced from engineer to foreman. He demonstrated a natural proclivity for leadership. Additionally, he and Eve, along with his RAF colleagues and his sister, my grandmother, vacationed in Spain at least once a year. After that, they all retired at their own discretion. The unfortunate truth is that family is not always a source of positive experiences. My grandmother was his only surviving direct family member. In contrast, Eve had a large family, with a significant number of children. The challenge with large families is that there are often a few individuals who contribute negatively to the dynamic. In this case, it was more efficient to count the positive individuals, as Hodge would. The issue with eggs is that it is only possible to distinguish between the good and the bad by spinning them or dunking them in water. Prison was not an appealing prospect, and Eve's family would frequently request money, which she did not have. Hodge, on the other hand, had always been industrious, saving as much as he could and only spending what he needed, with the exception of the holidays. At the age of 18, the legal age for alcohol consumption in the United Kingdom, I accompanied Hodge to his first beer. My father worked the night shift and therefore did not consume alcohol. This was unusual for him, as he was a regular patron of the local working men's club. I inquired of Hodge, "How is it that you abstain from drinking, when I am not?" I could not in good conscience consume his money without his knowledge. One might posit that it is unwise to reveal such information. However, I have recently been diagnosed with diabetes type 2, and I am therefore inclined to err on the side of caution. I am not inclined to divulge this information, but I would ask that you do not reveal it to my grandmother, Sheila. I will keep your secret, but you need to tell her. There is a possibility that I will tell her in the future, but I would prefer that you do not do so. I would advise you to drink it before it goes flat. Neither of us took much notice of the people around us. We were so preoccupied with our own affairs that we failed to notice Eve's nephew in the corner 5 years ago. I have seen him on a few occasions, but not as frequently as I would have liked due to work commitments and his relocation overseas. These instances have gradually become more frequent. On one occasion, I visited my grandparents and discovered my grandmother in a state of distress, with Hodge seated on the sofa. I immediately prepared a cup of coffee, which I served to my grandmother, and a cup of hot chocolate to Hodge. For me, and green tea for Hodge. Now, listen up. I have a limited time remaining on this planet. When I am gone, you are not to cry over me. I have been diagnosed with late-stage cancer, and I am pleased to be leaving this world. He then informed my grandmother that he was sorry to be the bearer of bad news. He said that, while she and her family will be looked after, she is not to be included in the arrangements. He then informed Eve and her family that he had prepared a new will and wished for it to be read in their presence. Following this conversation, we discovered that he had passed away. We chose to withhold from my grandmother the information that he had taken his own life, as we felt it would be too much for her to bear. It is worth noting that Hodge was a man who had always been independent of others. He made his own choice. Therefore, Gran was spared the agony of witnessing his gradual decline. We attended the reading as he requested, as it was the only thing he ever asked of us. We had seen people we had never met and never even heard of, so it was not surprising that some of the family members present were visibly displeased. The lawyer then informed us that we would now watch a video in which Hodge had a message for us. In the video, Hodge stated, "I imagine this will be a shock to most of you. I had cancer. If you're watching this, I want you to know that some of you made my last few years pleasant. Others, however, did not." He said this to my side of the family. Not one of you came to me asking if I was alright or wanted anything done. Instead, you asked if I wanted I am grateful to those who have offered their assistance. I have never had anyone do anything for me unless they were my subordinates in the Royal Air Force. I did not intend to start this process when I found out I was on my way out. You were more aware of my situation than most of my close family. I will inform you if something is wrong. I commend you for your awareness. Now, let us proceed to the most important part. He then addressed Eve's family. I am at a loss as to where to begin. When I took our grandson out for his first plane ride, it seems that the walls have ears. One of you overheard me tell him that I had diabetes. I am at a loss as to why you felt the need to mention that it was a shame it wasn't cancer. It seems that you got your wish. The rest of you, whenever you visited me, you asked more often than not if you could borrow money. I am fine with lending it to you, but I do expect it to be repaid. I did not anticipate that I would receive it back, so I have devised a plan of action. I have divided my assets and placed them in a trust with my oldest friend, who is also my lawyer. No one will receive any of the funds until the death of Eve. Therefore, do not inquire about the possibility of Eve remaining in the house. I have worked tirelessly to accumulate these assets until such a time as Eve either passes away or is compelled to enter a care facility for any reason. In that event, the house will not be included in the distribution of assets. The property shall be sold following the death of the aforementioned spouse. Despite her indolence, she shall remain my wife until her demise. Upon her passing, the house shall be sold at a reasonable price to the next owners, and the proceeds shall be added to the total for my finances and split with a family. Eve is on her own and may dispose of the property as she sees fit, except that it shall not be added to my total. My lawyer has been left instructions on this matter. In the event that a debt has been incurred and subsequently repaid, the recipient shall receive a fair share based on their age at the time of the testator's death. In the event that the debt has not been repaid, the recipient shall still receive a portion of the inheritance, minus the outstanding balance owed to the testator. It is hoped that the recipients will be aware that this is intended as a jest, and that it is intended to cause discomfort to the testator's surviving family members. The majority of the estate will be distributed according to your wishes. If you do not wish to retain it, the attorney has been compensated for any services you may require. You may trust him, he has saved my life on more than one occasion during wartime. Your sons will receive a substantial portion of the estate to assist with their needs, and your children will also be provided for. Oh, Peter, Mother has never uttered a disparaging word about you. You are to receive a portion of the inheritance, whether you approve or not. Opie, you have been of great assistance over the past few weeks. I have been remiss in not contacting you at 3 a.m. The time is 10 a.m. To assist me in exiting the bath after I had finally given up on the attempt to do so myself. I regret that you had to witness that. You were not required to assist with the decorating the following day. If you were not already on your chosen career path, you would be well suited to a role in the trades. A portion of the proceeds will be determined by the outcome of future events. You are free to use the funds as you see fit. I am utterly disillusioned to have known you. As previously stated, Eve is permitted to reside in the house until her demise or placement in a residential care facility. Should either of these occur, no further occupants are to reside in the house. I do not wish to have any further residents in the house. Cease your lamentations and resume your respective lives. Hodge, as you, it is conceivable that people would protest about this. We did not retain legal counsel and departed shortly after the funeral. He entered a retirement home with her own money. Hodges was incarcerated as per his request. She had more than sufficient resources to maintain her lifestyle for many more years. A couple of months later, we were summoned back to the lawyer's office. Was then shown a video. Hodge stated, "I am not surprised that this video has been played. Some of you just do not follow orders. If you are watching this, it means that someone I do not trust was found to be living in my house. I am indifferent as to who it is. The lawyer has instructions. The only remaining option is to remove the individual in question from the will entirely. If other parties wish to provide financial assistance, that is their prerogative. However, I will not be contributing to this endeavor. It transpires that my cousin, who was a source of bullying during our school days, and her family, are also involved. Once more, I must respectfully decline." Once more, the boyfriend, who had 2 children and a dog, had moved into the house after persuading Eve to vacate the premises. What they had not foreseen was the presence of inquisitive neighbors. Hodge requested that he keep an eye on the house and, should they observe any new individuals entering or evidence of a change in occupancy, they were to inform the lawyer for further instructions. In return, they would receive a portion of the money he had accumulated. They were decent individuals. The moral of the story is that one should not attempt to challenge a veteran of war. In essence, anyone who fought against the Nazis is not someone one would want to confront. This was our form of retribution, and if you appreciate this content, please indicate so by clicking the like button, as it significantly contributes to the growth of my channel.